How does it feel to be showing it in New York right now?
I'm very happy to be showing it in as many places as possible. Because everything is not on us now, it's on everyone else. So I think it's very important to be sharing our story with all the people that, you know, have faced the same experiences or are facing the same experiences or want to connect to what has happened for the last 75 years. So it's very emotional. It's not easy to be touring with the film with everything happening, but it kind of became a mission for me to be present and share with everyone. So.
So, the timing of this film with the obvious, I want to rewind a little bit because the film's very, very close to me. Your real mother is my fictional mother. She's friends with my mother. You know, I feel really connected. Who's here? Who's here with the flash on her light on the phone on? Would be no other way. If your mom was here, it would be even worse. There'd be sounds and ringers and all that. It'd be the whole, yeah, it would be. So I went with your mom. You know, I've been to all these locations with your mom. You know, I went to the home. You know, I went to the village. I went everywhere, and it was while we were there filming. So I think for all of us, we have, in many different ways, and I'm Egyptian, right? So it's like, even whether it's me or whether, you know, Mo, your mom, we're all really looking for ways to bring Palestine into our work. How, of all the many ways, how did you decide to enter the film this way? How did you decide to look at it, you know, through these women? Was that immediate for you, or were you looking at different approaches?
I think this film is a kind of a continuation of my first film, in which I filmed my Algerian grandparents, because I'm a mix of two colonized countries, so that's great. And what was important for me is I grew up, you know, with my Palestinian family, my Algerian family, and full of amazing and tragic stories that I wasn't seeing in the public space at all, like stories that are totally silenced in the public space. And it was very hard for me as someone who grew up in France to feel that people were not recognizing my history and the history of so many others like me. And I didn't understand how, as a human being, you can live in a society in which you're not recognized fully. And so for me, it's always been very important to portray the lives of the people of my family, because I knew that it wasn't just personal stories, but they were part of a more collective story. And the thing is, like, all my souvenirs of Palestine are these women who I grew up with. And I had the treasure of having these archival footage that my father was filming. And so when I decided to do the film, the first thing I did was looking back at all these images, and I saw this great presence of all these women. And I thought again, as an adult, to everything that they went through, and couldn't understand how they've been so strong and they've been able to raise their families and transmit values of love and a lot of laughter, a lot of, you know, great values like forgiveness, as my mother says in the film, while having to face, you know, all the displacement and dispossession that they faced. So I was really admiring that, and I was trying to understand what my mother had kept of all that and what she transmitted to me. And I was trying to reconnect, you know, to this line of transmission of all these women, because I felt that I was part of them.
Yeah, I mean, and there's this there's three different types of footage here, right? There's obviously what you shot, there's what your father shot, and then there's this, you know, historical footage. And I kind of wanted to ask you about that, because the historical footage is very striking, right? And it kind of is. It's wild to see it, because I do think that part of the dialogue, and I can imagine you can even speak to this in somewhere, you know, like France, but I remember being 20, you know, and talking to somebody about Palestine and kind of talking about, you know, what happened and talking about the Nakba, and someone just really nonchalantly just being like, well, no, there wasn't a country there. You know, there was, no, it wasn't recognized, that wasn't there. talk to me a little bit about like seeing that footage, because I think it's really emotional to kind of see just how much of a country there was.
The thing, what was hard is, when you're used to everyone saying that nothing existed or a society wasn't present there, you are looking for proofs of your existence everywhere. So each image that you find becomes like a proof of your existence and becomes the proof of a denied existence. And so it was very hard to find the archival footage because they're scattered. The Palestinian memory is scattered. We don't have, of course, an organ that collects archives because they have been also erased for a reason. So a lot of archives have disappeared, have been destroyed. And so I was looking for something without knowing what was there. So it's not like I knew what I was looking for. And the challenge was I was looking for images of women in these archives. So it was a double obstacle. And the thing is, when I eventually started finding things, I was shocked that a lot of things are there. They're not accessible. I saw images of like Haifa, where a lot of my family lives, of Haifa in 48, when they were just like kicking people out of their homes. And I saw the images and I was like, we have all the proofs of our existence, of our experience. And I saw, there's this image of the woman with the stroller. And, we have these images, of course, that we know of Palestinian refugees with other things on their back. But it was also a very educated society with a lot of different social classes. And it was really important for me to use these images because I wanted to give back also to all the women of the film their right to exist in the places in which they grew up, places in which their memory is completely wiped out. And, the images of Tiberias that I found were so moving because it was such a beautiful place in which people coexisted. And I remember my great-grandmother always telling me how, she had her Jewish neighbor and she has her Christian neighbor, and they were, alet is a very good food. I don't know how to call it in English, but they were like picking up alet and frying it and eating it together. And it was really important for me to tell their personal story, but within the collective story. So to also have all these other faces of women around them, because it's not only their displacement, it's the displacement of all the Palestinian people at that time.
I think the way that I don't think I've ever seen it this way, and I think part of it is, it's so hard to find that footage and to see it, personally in your family. I wish the women of your family could have seen the film, in its completion. The ones who didn't get to see it, because it's such a beautiful portrait of them, and there's just so much love with your grandmother. It really made me think of, I wish my grandmother saw it. What did you learn about your mom? Because I love these moments with your mom where she's so annoyed with you, like she's really bothered. She's like, why the fuck are you at? Like, she's so uncomfortable, and it translates so well on screen. Anything that I'm just.
Yeah. No, the great thing is she was bothered with me, but at the same time she wanted to be there all the time. I remember there was one day of shooting when I told her, today I'm just gonna film landscape, so you can stay at home. She's like, no, I'll come with you. I think what was really impactful for me was to discover all the poems that my mother was writing when she was younger, and to access this imaginary, because you always think of your mother, as a mother, and you never think of her as a young woman with her dreams and aspirations. And so accessing that was really impressive. I was really impressed by, the dreams that she had at a time where there was nothing around that could allow her to access these dreams. And I was really impressed by how each of the women of my family, my great-grandmother, my grandmother, have been able to take some decisions in moments where they were deprived of everything, and they've been able to, pursue some of their dreams. And, the strength that they had and that they still have is so inspiring for me, because while doing the film, I was facing a lot of challenges. I had a lot of fear, and I still have fear today. And the last sentence in the film, I was hesitating to keep it. And today I thank my editor who insisted on keeping it, which is what if the remains of this place, what if is left of this place that we have were to disappear, and it's something that is possible. It's this fear of losing again and again and having to reconstruct yourself and reinvent yourself again and again. And they have been able to do that and to transmit to us so many things. And so all of this helped me go on because my challenges were so small compared to everything that they went through. So I think it gave me a lot of strength. And I was really impressed by how my mom dealt with her love life because it's very intense.
I mean, it's crazy. It's also like, because I think you do a good job of this in the film, but it's like, I think just having gone, it's like, it's such a long drive even from Haifa, and I think it's so, meeting the women of your family, in real life, and I think obviously it's so clear in the film, just incredibly brilliant people, really like worldly people. And I just feel like the American sensibility of people who would live in a village in the Middle East, and then to have someone like your mom who's like, no, this is what I'm gonna do and this is how I'm gonna do it, just kind of goes against everything that we're kind of made to think. And I thought you did such a beautiful job in showing that. And I think, in the way that their ideas, transcend to the whole world and kind of transcend location. I'm curious who your ideal audience is for this film.
I think nowadays I don't have an ideal audience because I think it's good that everyone sees it. Of course, I think of all the Palestinians and Arabs I know that are used to see themselves very stigmatized in cinema, and I think especially women, and cinema in general are usually very binary, either portrayed as the very rebellious one that cuts with the family, and either it's the very conservative one. It's as if you cannot exist in your full complexity as Arabs, or if you do, it's as if we have to give all the historical context so that people understand. And I always tell, we see so many Scandinavian films, and I have never been to Scandinavia, and I connect with them, So why do we have to give context as if we don't deserve the same humanity or... So yeah, for me, it was just natural for me because this complexity is part of our human condition, and I knew that it was a political thing to allow them to exist with their contradictions, with their flaws, with their strengths, and I think it's very important because also there's today kind of like everyone is expecting Palestinians to be saints, for them to not be victims, and like. You have to be the perfect Palestinian, but no one accepts even a perfect Palestinian, which is a human Palestinian. So it was really important for me to have all these layers coexist in this film.
Yeah, and I think the layers are wild. I mean, like there's the one scene, it's at your aunt's house where everyone's sitting outside. And it's just wild when you're kind of cutting between the old footage, the new footage, and it's like everyone's different. There's like, your grandmother's wearing a headscarf, but then it's like the short haircuts and the long haircuts and the different dresses and the people who aren't wearing. It's like it is this complexity that I think is totally robbed of imagery. And I just thought, again, you putting that out there and seeing all of it and how real that is really beautiful. I wanted to open it up to people. Is there anything you wanted to say?
Yeah, it's funny because it reminds me of one of my aunts that got married in the village, and she dressed up as an English lady. I don't know where this style came from. But it was very funny that they all made fun of her.
I love the way they were making fun of each other. Like, I mean, like even with your moms, they're like, oh, yeah, she was just out here. Yeah. That was amazing. Questions?
Yes.
How did you go about converting your father's recording onto this street, into the movie?
The recordings?
How did you go about converting the father's recording? And your father was
the VHS?
Yeah, the VHS.
Yeah. It was all VHS tapes that I digitalized. So it's pretty easy to do. Yeah. It's now or never, people.
Just formatting questions?
Yes.
Yeah.
Are you facing any type of censorship from film festivals? Any type of backlash, censorship? Because I know a lot of artists have had their work pulled from...
For now, I was very lucky, and I hope thank you.
Oh,
Thank you.
thank you. Wow. Wow, legendary exit. Arabs usually come late. He leaves early with a killer line. Thank you, sir. You're a German Arab? Okay, it makes sense. Censorship.
Yeah, no, I haven't had. I was very lucky until now. You know, I've been to many festivals. There's a lot of festivals that start also wanting the film newly, and it hasn't been pulled. So I was very lucky to, you know, be able to accompany the film, do the Q&As, and be free in what I could say. So I guess I'm lucky on that side, yeah.
Yes. How did your mom react when you told her you wanted to make a film about her life?
So how did my mom react? So she wasn't really into it at first. It was really hard for her because she's an actress and she's used to express emotions through other life stories. And I think because of everything that she went through, she kind of built a sort of protection around her intimate life. But at the same time, I'm her daughter and she couldn't not do it. Like she wanted to do, like she wanted to please me, but at the same time, it was very hard. It took a long time for us to find the right way of exchanging because even me, I was really frightened behind the camera and I didn't know exactly what I was looking for at first. There was a thing that I was trying to understand is why did she bring me all the time and then she stopped bringing me, and you know, it's questions that she didn't ask herself. So I was, you know, digging into something that she didn't really thought of. But then I tried to find ways to make her more comfortable. So I wanted to use the fact that she was an actress so that she could react some of the events of her past, and having her with the ants as soon as they are together, they are all natural. And little by little also I was trying to explain to her that it's not a film about her, it's not a portrait of her as an actress, it's not a film about her as a woman, it's a film about her as a Palestinian woman within a line of Palestinian women. So I think it took time for me and her to understand exactly where this was going, but she was always supportive the whole time, even though when she was asking me to stop asking questions, but she would always like wait for the next. So yeah, that's the contradiction. But she saw the film a couple of times. The first time she saw it, she was next to me on a couch, and I was like looking at her during the whole time, and she didn't react so much. And she told me that usually when she sees a film in which she is in, she doesn't like it from the first time, but this time she liked it. So that was a good compliment. Yeah.
Yes. How long did it take you to make from start to finish, and what was your biggest challenge?
It took around 6 years to do it. I think my biggest challenge was, first of all, I wrote a lot. I was filming and then I had to rewrite, and I decided by the end of the editing to write the stories about the women of the family and edit them on the archival footage, because the archival footage was the hardest to find, the historical footage. And yeah, the challenges were more in the writing, more than the production. And also I think it was overcoming my fear of having this film out. I was really afraid of like showing our intimate life, our vulnerabilities, of being loud about, you know, I was always afraid of talking about Palestine, and I always do, but you know, you always expose yourself. Now I think we should all do it, so it's fine. But you know, the things I used to write when I started the film 6 years ago are the same things that I say today. It's people who are dispossessed of their rights, and dehumanized all the time, and I feel like now it's even more obvious, but it's something that we've always faced. You know, we've always seen ourselves in the eyes of the Israeli soldier that doesn't look at you the way that he looks at a normal human being, you know, so we know that. And it's something that we can never accept because it's not bearable as a human being. But the thing is, I really wanted to like overcome my fear to be able to transmit the stories. So that was the challenge of always like, because sometimes my mom would say, oh, well, stop the film, we'll do it later. And I'm like, I also was afraid of continuing, but I did my best to go until the end. Yes?
Can you say something about language, your relation to Arabic, but also the balance in the film between Arabic and French?
Yeah, it was a big question in the writing because I'm fluent in Arabic, but I don't read and write because I learned it through my mom. I never been to school in Arabic, so I'm more comfortable with French, and I think it says something also of the gap that can be created when you're born somewhere else, and when you don't share the same language as your ancestors. It's as if you will never have access fully to your story and your belonging, and at the same time you're always trying to keep a link. And I think I wanted to show that it's something that we accepted, that is part of our richness also, and it's something that I really wanted to tackle in the film, because naturally my mom would speak in Arabic with me and I would answer in French, and this is the reality of our relationship, so I wanted to have the same reality in the film, because I could have written with someone in Arabic and then practiced, but it wouldn't have been natural.
We have time for one last question.
Two last, yeah.
Thank you very much for this beautiful film, and I'd like to know why you chose this music. You talked about the treasure of having images,
Yeah.
but I would like to know why you chose
The music. Yeah. It was really important for me I worked with a composer who is French-Tunisian, called Amin Bouhafa. It was really important to me to have music because I feel like every story of, like the 4 stories of the women are very epic, in the sense that even when you're only told in words, it's such, they're like more than heroes. It's really epic, and I wanted to give them back poetry. I wanted to give them back this imaginary. I wanted to allow them to exist in a imaginary territory full of poetry and emotions, and so I felt that music was part of that. And it was important for me to allow music to add a layer of emotion and narration to the film. There was just one last.
One more?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
So I'm asking a question on her behalf because she can't speak.
Okay.
What was the biggest or most eye-opening thing that you learned from making this film about your mother, your family, and Palestine?
I think it's a bit of everything that I've said. Rediscovering the strength of these women, and also revaluing the fact that, despite everything they went through, they never taught us anger nor revenge, nor they've always been full of love and forgiveness. I think they are, as we see today, they are all teaching us life, and it's very important to hold on to that, because the thing that happens when I face this also as an Algerian French. What happens when you come from colonized places is that you end up perceiving yourself in the eye of the oppressor, and you end up unconsciously starting to believe, and you are devaluing yourself all the time. And I think it's very important to have a look at all the things that were transmitted to you that are so valuable. And so for me, it's a constant reminder of the richness of the Palestinian society, the richness of the Palestinian people, who were one of the most educated people in the region and are still. It reminds me, in Italy, I did an interview with Italian TV and the Rai Uno, which is the national TV, and they asked me, do Palestinians have a sense of family? It's just like, every day you're reminded that you have to keep on proving, that you're human. So it's kind of a crazy lesson, but we have to fight against that.
We're going to wrap this up.
Thank you.
I just want to say thank you for making this. I know you were afraid making it. I think everyone needs to see it. Please tell people to see it. And I also think that now that you have done this, don't stop. I love the point that you made about Scandinavian film, right? Because it's like, there's really rich, we tend to box ourselves in as creatives, as filmmakers. I know there's a lot of creatives here. It's okay. You could make 3 more films about Palestine and you're still not going to cover it. And you should. And other people should. Because we're building that, and everyone here is part of that. And so thank you for doing it, and keep doing it.
Thank you.
Yeah. The man with the yellow suit, he's coming close. That means
Thank you.
it's trouble.